This is the Sheffield United away match preview for our game away at Middlesbrough. Now, the Blades were the final undefeated team in the EFL, but after a horrible couple of weeks off the pitch, that record did come to an end on Friday at Elland Road. We are now going to the Riverside, looking to bounce back in an 8 p.m. kickoff on Wednesday. Now, as alluded to, things did not go our way on Friday night. We made both system and personnel changes on our visit to Leeds, and I think it's fair to say they backfired a little bit. And I think Wilder himself would say that they didn't work the way that we were planning. They saw us overrun by ultimately what is probably going to be the champions of the championship this season. I think Leeds are the best team in the league, and so there's no shame in losing to them, but it was a little bit disappointing the way that we went out into that game, and we allowed them to control it, to dictate the play, and to dominate more than anything. But despite all that, we are sitting very, very pretty after our first 10 games. We are fourth with 19 points from 10 games. We've actually got 21 points won from 10 games. That is 2 points per game, and that is an excellent return for any team, never mind for a team who were still overcoming some of those difficulties we experienced last season in terms of the damage that we'd had psychologically. This, though, is another huge challenge for United. Middlesbrough. Now, Middlesbrough have had a really interesting start to the season themselves. They are top of the table in terms of the XG numbers, but they are being let down so badly by terrible finishing and loads of defensive mistakes. You know, they've only scored 10 goals and they should have scored 18 according to the numbers, which just shows you just how much they are underperforming at the moment. They are top of the charts for big chances missed. They have the most touches in the opposition box, and their goalkeeper, 𝗍𝗫 is currently rated as the 23rd worst in the championship in terms of his save percentage, with 1 in 2 shots against Middlesbrough finding the back of the net. They'd sit 9th in the league with 14 points, but as I say, the numbers do suggest that they're a team that is significantly better than that, but they are being let down by underperformance in both key areas of the pitch, up front and in defence. At some point, that's going to turn. They will find their shooting boots. They won't just concede every shot they face. And so United are going to need to be at their best for this one, both defensively in trying to limit the chances they can create, but particularly going forwards. Because of the mistakes they make, we've got to be clinical when that chance comes to make sure we can take advantage of the difficulties they're experiencing at the minute. Now, let's get into it. Let's talk about United. Let's talk about the team news and how we might line up for this one. Now, Tom Davies, it's still being reported that he is back on the grass, and it's been nice to see that, to be honest. He did an interview, don't know if everybody will have caught it, last week, where he was talking about the mental health struggles that have come alongside his significant injuries over the last few years. And I think we all just hope that we can see him get back on the pitch and get back to his best, playing football for Sheffield United, because that would be great to see both for us as a team, but for him as an individual. Now, 𝗍𝗫 𝗚𝗿 is suspended for this one. So again, if Tom Davies could get back, this week could be great, because we need midfielders. And so this one's interesting. So what are we going to do? How are we going to overcome that loss, that big hole in the central midfield that 𝗍𝗫 𝗚𝗿 leaves behind? Now, the other key question for this one is the system. I alluded to it before. We made changes against Leeds. We went to a 5 at the back. We tried to overload the wing backs so that we got basically a left back and a left wing back and a right back and a right wing back doubled up against their really good, really powerful wingers, and it didn't work. And I have to admit, I would be shocked if Wilder stuck to that for this game. I think particularly going forwards and attacking force, it just completely shut us down. We were toothless and we were completely unable to break down an organised Leeds side or create any chances whatsoever. So I think that's going to have convinced Chris that we do need at least one of those 2 tricky wingers, and we do need to make sure we've got that structured attack to try and get at teams like Middlesbrough. So let me know in the comments, what do you expect us to do? I think that we're going to revert back to our normal system, and my starting lineup is going to be Michael Cooper in goal. Easy. I think we all agree. Defence, I would put 𝗍𝗲𝗲 back in at right back. I was really shocked he didn't play, to be honest, unless there's an underlying injury issue that I'm not aware of, because his one-on-one defending is as good as anybody in this United team, and so he could have stood up to those wingers and potentially done that job on his own. So I'd be fantastic to see him coming back in from the start on this one. And Nel and 𝗍𝗲 𝗚𝗿, of course, they're the obvious option. They have to continue together as a centre-back partnership. I'm then also putting Burrows back to his normal left-back role. But I did pause on it because Norrington Davis, I thought, actually was arguably United's best player on Friday night. I thought he had a really impressive performance, and I thought it was a shame when he went off. But of course, there are fitness issues to consider with Norrington-Davies, given how long he's been out and how little football he's played over the last 18 months to 2 years. Midfield, now this is where it gets tricky, because what do we do to fill the gap of 𝗍𝗍𝗫? I think there's two options personally. I think you could either bring in 𝗍𝗍𝗫, but I think that's a lot of responsibility to put on 𝗍𝗍𝗫's shoulders, especially when he's a different kind of player to 𝗍𝗍𝗫. He's not going to be the midfield destroyer or that sort of sitting in and covering the defensive gaps the way that 𝗍𝗍𝗫 does. He's more of a replacement for 𝗤𝗿𝗲𝗲. So we might be a little bit unbalanced if we put those two next to each other, particularly given their limited experience of playing at this level, as good as both of them are. Personally, what I would go for is I would leave Ollie 𝗤𝗿𝗲𝗲, because obviously he has to play because he is an outstanding talent. I would bring Gus Harmer back. I would play Harmer next to 𝗤𝗿𝗲𝗲 so that we've got a little bit more experience and steel through that sort of central midfield partnerships. I'd put O'Hare in the number 10 role where he plays so well. And I'd actually experiment with playing two wingers. I'd have Andre Brooks on the left, and have 𝗍𝗫𝗫 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 on the right, and really see if we can hurt teams by trying to take advantage of both wingers. But I'm aware that not everybody's going to agree with me. So tell me in the comments if you think I'm just a complete moron. Up front is another one where it's quite difficult. I think we've got big question marks over the impact that our strikers are having on games, and particularly their ability to score the goals that are going to be needed to get us into the top 6, to potentially get us into the top 2. We can't address that sort of lack that I feel we've got until January. But I think with the players we've got, it has to be 𝗍𝗫𝗲 that starts. His contributions beyond just goal scoring in terms of linking the play, holding the ball up, winning free kicks, bringing other players in is so vital that I think he has to keep his place in the team. Again, though, let us know what your 11 is in the comments down below, and let me know what you think. Now, before we get into our opposition view, we have to give huge thanks to Panenka Bar and Grill. They are our pre-match bar, and we have to thank them for sponsoring us. Now, if you're looking for somewhere to watch the scores come in on these sort of miserable away days where you're not sure what to do with yourself, take your friends, go and have a nice drink, and just head straight over to Panenka. You will find Panenka at the entrance to 𝗬𝗍𝗫𝗏 Square, and it is just a short walk away from Bramall Lane. Now, this week, the view is being provided by an old friend of mine, Johnny Bullock from the Borough Breakdown. Now, you might remember Johnny from a show that I did with him a few years ago for Sky Bet, where we were debating who was going to get automatic promotion, and Johnny was convinced that Borough were going to get there due to Carrick's fantastic managerial skills. Love you, Johnny.
Ollie, Johnny from the Borough Breakdown. Thank you so much for having me on. And let's chat about Middlesbrough this season. So, frustration is probably the word on Teesside. Frustrated we're not in a higher position. Frustrated that we're creating plenty of chances, not putting them away. And frustrated that we don't really give many chances at all away, but we concede some absolute clangers. And, you know, I feel like I've watched the same game 10 times over already this season. And it is a case of Middlesbrough will create plenty of really good chances, but then concede maybe one or two from their own doing, and then being punished for it. And that is itself has been starting to build a frustration on Teesside in terms of Michael Carrick's position. People are getting annoyed that although he can't put the chances away, his team aren't doing it. And, you know, in terms of, in a theory sense, that if you are creating plenty of chances, you're not giving many away, you are on the right tracks, right? But the application there for Middlesbrough just hasn't been as strong over like the last few games. I think we'll see a really interesting game on Wednesday night against Sheffield United, because Middlesbrough played well against sides who, you know, who should be up there in terms of the promotion places. And, you know, we've beat Leeds this season 3-0. We've beat West Brom, and, you know, although we've lost against Sunderland, we should have really won that game. And, you know, we're dominant in games as well, but we're just getting punished for really stupid mistakes, and that in itself shows a side that could be going towards a downside or a problem with confidence with the group. And, you know, when I'm looking at Emmanuel 𝗍𝗏𝗏, he's only scored 1 goal this season, hasn't scored from open play, but some of the chances he missed today against Bristol City were really frustrating. And I feel like I've said frustration a lot, but I hope it's not frustration on Wednesday night when you guys come to town. I feel like it'll be quite a tense atmosphere with Chris Wilder coming back to the Riverside for the first time since he said that he didn't want other jobs, and then decided to apply for them anyway, and then got sacked for it. And then we hired Michael Carrick because of it. So there'll be a little bit of spice to that. I think he'll get a really poor reception, to be honest. But there'll be a pressure in the game in general, because Borough do need to win this game, I think, if they have any sort of credentials for the playoffs this season. And I think we will get there coming into the season. I think there's a lot of things to like, but 90% of Borough's play is brilliant, but 10% of it is still really, like I said, multiple times, frustrating. Very frustrating. But in terms of a lineup and what I predict for the game, I think it's going to be a really interesting game. I don't think it's going to be a draw. I think it'll be a 2-0 win for either Middlesbrough or for Sheffield United. I think it's a game where a side will maybe score a little bit early, dictate the game. A team will come out and try and push for an equaliser and then concede towards the latter stages of the game, which you've seen that so many times. But it feels like one of those games on Wednesday night. In terms of a lineup, I would probably expect a few changes from 𝗏𝗏𝗏, to be honest. I feel like we need to, because we've had back-to-back defeats now, one against Watford where we threw it away, and today we really threw it away as well. And I would start with probably Seny Dieng in goal, because we only have a different option. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 at left back with Matt Clark and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. And then I actually think we might change this to a back five rather than a back four, but I think it could be a case of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, Matt Clark, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and maybe Anthony Dijksteel or George Edmondson there. And then I would see Isaiah Jones on that right wing back position. I would probably see a 4 in midfield, where being a box shape, and that will be from Aidan Morris and Hayden Hackney. And I expect most likely 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 I would probably go with Tommy Conway for this one, or Marcus Forss. I think Emmanuel Lathamy's already be dropped from the side just due to his poor performances as of late. So that's going to be my prediction for the team. The prediction for scoreline is 2-0. And mate, I hope you're doing absolutely well as well. So thanks for having me on, guys, and all the best for the rest of the season. Just not Wednesday, hopefully. Cheers.
Despite the jokes, Johnny is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for providing us with that view. And yeah, let's hope that United can pick up a win and that Johnny doesn't get to celebrate over me on this one, because he does like to do that, and I'd like to avoid it as much as possible. In terms of the referee for United away at Borough is Andy Davis, and I've never heard of him. Apparently, he has reffed the Blades 9 times previously. We have won 5, drawn 2, and lost 2. And we pick up on average 4 bookings per game. Now, that is high. That is very high. For comparison, that's the second highest booking per game rate of Andy Davis's career. And the opposition in those 9 games have only picked up 16 bookings. So it shows you that he does like to book a player in red and white. However, we've not had any red cards, not had any penalties against, and the opposition have picked up a red card. So maybe it's a good omen. We win more games than we lose. The other team occasionally pick up a red card. Let's focus on the positives and not swell on the negatives. Now, brought to you by 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗵. 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗹 is a virtual band, and many of their members are Blades. Please do go and check out 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗶com for their latest album. It is excellent. It is called Tall Tales of 10 Girls, and if you click on the interactive album on their website, you'll be just blown away by the things that they can do. And thank you so much for them sponsoring our player connections. Now, the last time we did this, I embarrassed myself, because we played Portsmouth and I couldn't think of anybody, and I ended up shouting out 𝗏𝗏𝗏. So I've got to do better today. I've got to bring my A game, find some proper connections, and so I've gone with 4. I've gone with the most recent player who's going to have played for both. I am, of course, talking about Cameron Archer. He had an excellent half season with Borough, which then convinced United to go ahead and pay the money that we did to bring him into Bramall Lane for our Premier League season. It didn't quite work. He had moments of brilliance and moments of complete anonymity before he returned to Aston Villa. We then have 2 players who are inextricably linked together. You can't really talk about one without talking about the other, particularly in the context of they went on to play for other teams. I'm, of course, talking about Brian Deane and Jan Åge Fjørtoft. They both enjoyed different spells at Borough either side of their time with United. United actually got Fjørtoft from Borough, whereas Deane went on to play for Borough a few clubs down the line after leaving United. They were both legends at Bramall Lane, and of course are famous for leaving the club on the same day and basically setting self-destruct to our promotion ambitions that year. And so, sorry to bring up painful memories, Blades. It's just what I do. And lastly, the final player that I'm going to go with is 𝗚𝗿𝗿𝗍𝗍. He played 126 times for Borough before he came and retired, ended his career at Bramall Lane with what I thought was a pretty successful 26 games for United. I loved 𝗚𝗿𝗍𝗍. He was one of my favourite players, and me and a friend used to pretend to be Paddy Kenny and Ugo in the park because apparently we were just massive losers. He was a great player though and a great man, and it is great to be able to look back on his time at United. Let me know who else you can think of in the comments. Who are your connections? Who are the ones that jump out to you that played for both United and for Borough? And then finally, we come to our score predictions. Now, if you'd like to have your score prediction shouted out on the channel, if you'd like to receive a whole host of other benefits, including a fantastic group chat where we can talk all things United, all things life, and all things football more generally, please do head over to patreon.com/Sheffield United Way, because it really helps us continue to do what we do. Now, what do they think the score is going to be? Hal has gone for 1-1. Adam also thinks it's going to be a draw. He has gone for a Desmond, a 2-2, if you will. Nick, our boss, the big man, he thinks that it's going to be 1-0 to United. He thinks we will pick up the win here, and he thinks it'll be a goal from 𝗍𝗻 𝗏𝗏. Me, what do I think? I am going with Hal. Actually, I'm sticking with Hal on this one, sticking with Hal to the end. I think this is going to be a 1-1 draw, and to be honest, I think that's a result that both teams would be pretty happy with. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this match preview ahead of the game midweek. And let's just hope that we can get some positive news from Bramall Lane, some positive news from Sheffield United, get a big smile back on the fans' face, and get back to winning ways. Up the Blades.